What's finer than fine dining? How about dining at the Great Wall of China or inside the Louvre? Edward Perotti has turned some of the world's most iconic heritage sites, including the Forbidden Palace and the Basilica Sistine, into once-in-a-lifetime private events for the global elite. In this episode, Edward shares how he broke into this ultra-exclusive industry, the meticulous planning behind these jaw-dropping experiences, and his insights on cross-cultural communication and networking with the world's most influential people. If you wonder what it's like to create magic for the top 1%, this episode is unmissable. But here are some episode highlights I want you to hear first.
Luxury is an emotion. It's not a product. So when you start talking about these experiences, you have to tell it in the story that's going to touch them. I did the same thing in Versailles with the dinner was, if Marie Antoinette was having a dinner party here right now, what would it look like? If you see a picture, never try and recreate the picture because it's never going to work. That event or that scene was created by someone of a different mind. It was a different moment in time, a different budget. It's never that moment's gone. But if you look at that picture, what are you connecting with? The longer story is homework, homework, homework. Learn about the culture, learn about the processes, learn about the people. Doing the events, there is zero. I don't care what anybody tells you. It is not about the individual. It is a collaborative execution experience. And the more technology separates us, the events are what's going to keep people together.
Edward, what an absolutely amazing episode this is going to be. A world-class event designer. How did you break into this industry? Was it on purpose or by accident?
100% accidental. More of, I had no idea there was an industry. I had zero. I was working for an online publishing company. Who knew? And you know, be it fate, be it karma, whatever you want to call it, somehow I came across it and fell into it and realized that it's what I was meant to do. It was, you know, when you find that niche that just sparks you and makes you happy and makes you, no matter what job you have, there's always drama, there's always pain, there's always crap, right? But if you have a job that you still enjoy going to and you still enjoy doing regardless of all that, you've hit gold. And I hit gold.
Wow, that was impressive. And when you first began, right, how did you master this impressive client roster of A-list celebrities and all these top billionaires that you work with, top Fortune 500 companies?
So I'm a big believer that everything can come to you today and everything can leave you tomorrow. So, you know, amassing is kind of a great concept, but I don't buy into that. I don't believe it. I think you need to work every day at it. I think you need to be authentic to yourself, into your product. And if your product is yourself, you damn well better be authentic to it. And you also have to realize that it can go away at the snap of a finger. So enjoy it, enjoy what you're doing. And that comes through to companies and to people, right? They start feeling that, you know, am I impressed with everything they have or their status, or I'm impressed at where they've gotten, but does it make me starstruck, or does it make me envious, or does it make me? Absolutely not, because at the end of the day, they still go to the restroom the same way I do. They still put their pants on the same way I do. The pants might be more expensive than mine, but they are still people. They are still companies. So, and they could be gone tomorrow as well, right? I mean, so it is keeping that attitude of live for today and enjoy the moment and enjoy what you're doing, and that resonates in your work and people gravitate towards that.
Quality and consistency really was a key, right?
Completely. Quality, consistency, honesty, transparency. It's everything aside from a social media perspective, because you do also have to believe that social media personas are just that. They're personas. They are selling a product, but what happens in private life is that's who you want to connect with. You want to connect with that person. You want to connect with that CEO to really find out, how do they want their people to connect? How do they entertain? How do you bring them as a person forward? And that you can't do that unless you're actually authentic.
Oh, authenticity. And speaking of authenticity, how did you begin to pitch a hosting private event at a World Heritage sites like the Great Wall of China or Louvre? That must have taken like a lot of effort, right?
Well, not really. So I will say that the Great Wall was, everything that I have done in China has been, it's kind of been ego driven. Who hasn't wanted to do something that's that extreme, right? Who hasn't wanted to have the Louvre all to themselves, right? To not have to navigate 35,000 people to go see Mona Lisa. Who wouldn't want to just have a glass of champagne and wander up to her and toast her all by yourself in the room, right? So there is a little bit of that. And I do have a list of things that before I die, I want to do. Now, if I can weave that into an event experience at the same time, fantastic. But how I go about pitching it is, I don't pitch it unless I've done my homework. I don't like anybody. I mean, and we're talking down to the frontline salesperson trying to sell me on something that they're not quite sure about. If it's going to come out of my mouth as an option, I've already done all the homework in the back to know whether or not it can actually really be done, right? Versus in a conversation, we should just go into the Forbidden City and take over the ancestral temple. Okay, that sounds really good, and you can paint a beautiful picture with your words. But what happens if they say yes and you have no idea how to make it happen? So to take a step back and say, okay, I've seen this place. I would love, my ego would love to create something very special and unique here. How would that happen? How would that work? What hoops would I need to go through? What kind of paperwork? All of that. And then I'm a very hard to believe, and people who know me who listen to this will laugh hysterically when I say that there are certain things that I'm very subtle about. I'm not a hard sell. I'd like to have a conversation and tell a story about what it could be. And Paris, as an example, the client literally hated Paris. Hated Paris. Did not want to go to Paris. And I went to dinner with him and his wife. And we're sitting at a nice little steakhouse and we're having a great conversation, really good wine. And I started to bring the subject up again, and he cut me off at the knees. And he was like, I don't want to talk about Paris. And so I went and I looked at his wife and I'm like, so and so, if you had the opportunity to spend 4 days in Paris with him or with me, who would you want to go to Paris with? And she turned and looked at him and she just said, let him give it Paris. So that just kind of ended the conversation. I'm like, okay, yes, your wife just slapped you down. She doesn't have anything to do with the company, but we're going to Paris. From that point, I knew that I had to give him a Paris that he has never experienced or thought he would, which would then trickle down to all the employees. And that's where the idea of, Okay, I've seen a fashion show in the Louvre. I've seen some things going on in the Louvre in different prints. Let's find out. I've seen, you know, private events at Versailles, really large, grand scale ones. This particular one night, I have 80 high end people. What would it take for me to get the Chateau Versailles for only 80 people? And just start kind of finding out all those pieces, and then I can start telling a story, right? And walk them through the beauty with luxury and retail. Luxury retail does it so good, and it's where my industry kind of trips a little, is events are telling stories, right? It's all about storytelling. So, and from a luxury perspective, retail luxury is not about the product, right? I expect that leather to be good. Same with hotels. I don't need you to sell me on the thread count. If I'm paying $1,200 a night, I expect the thread count to be where it is. I expect these things. I want to know, and I want to tell people, what is this experience going to make them feel? And that's what luxury is, an emotion. It's not a product. So when you start talking about these experiences, you have to tell it in the story that's going to touch them, that's going to make them feel something, so that they can then start forming their own opinion on how they would feel. And then, of course, you know, you need to make sure, going back to homework, can they even afford this conversation? Right? I mean, it's little things. With Paris as an example, this particular client kept saying, he's like, there is no way we're going to drop the money for the Louvre. I'm like, we got it, we got it, we got it. Don't worry about it. It's within scope. Years later, he finally cornered me and he was like, I really want to know how you did that. And how did you do that in budget? I'm like, okay, now it's been time. I can tell you what I did. I'm like, I found out that the Louvre was closed for cleaning one day a month. You never noticed that I shifted your program by one day. So the whole program moved one day, which would put this day on the day of their cleaning. So instead of me having to close them down and pay for all the lost revenue of tickets, they're already closed. They're already making no revenue. So I just paid a rental, a basic rental. And woo, look what you got. Right? So it really is about creating emotion. It's about creating moments to remember for the audience and for the host and hostess. It's about experiences. And I wouldn't even say that's not just a luxury thing, it's events in general. You are there to create a memory for the individuals that they're always, always, always going to connect back to the host, hostess, business, association, whatever it is, in a positive light. That you might not remember what you ate at so and so's wedding. You're going to remember if you had a great time. On the other side, if it doesn't work, they'll remember the detail of how bad that meal was. Right? So you need to think of the psychology and the storytelling.
My next question is about cross-cultural communication, but since we delve into a lot of cool stories, I love for you to tell the audience about how you booked the Great Hall of the People, where the top CCP elite member get to dine, but you were able to have your clients rebuild a part of the Great Wall.
So, and it's, I am a little flip with this conversation, and it did not happen this flip, but hindsight being 2020, it just kind of makes me giggle now that I walked into the Great Hall of the People and was just blown away. And for audiences who don't know, the Great Hall of the People is in Tiananmen Square. I would equate it to, from a U.S. perspective, the White House, right? It's revered. and that is where the state dinners. This particular location is where President Nixon and Chairman Mao met and had the meal. And so once again, from an ego mentality, I always thought it'd be kind of cool to recreate that dinner, but modernize it. Keep it culturally correct, but modernize it. And I would encourage the audience to go online and look up this location. The paintings that are in this hall, and they're not done by famous artists. They're done by mechanical engineers, and they're made by the people. And they are the most beautiful pieces of artwork you've ever seen, paintings and such. Anyway, knowing that it was a political location, the whole thing was, well, first off, you could be bumped at a moment's notice, but we don't do it. We really don't do it, and blah, 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 blah. I start hearing Charlie Brown's teachers in my head at a certain point. I also knew that I wanted to do some sort of give back, because that is part of my business ethos, that I really think you need to leave more than you take with any event. I don't even care if it's a wedding. You figure out how to leave something more, even as a thank you, right? To the whatever community around the world that you're meeting in. And so I had this idea regarding the Great Wall, didn't really know how to go about it. And if you've ever navigated the Chinese government process, it's all over the place. And it really is kind of all scattered. And as inappropriate as it is, I used to make comments of, is that where the term the red tape came from? Because there is a lot of red tape going through it. But myself and the team made a journey to what would be translated as the Ancient Relics Department. And knowing that the Chinese people are good about taking care of things, but they're not really that into philanthropic things like what we do in the States when it comes to giving back and, helping out in those ways. So I made a deal with them that we would do something regarding the Great Wall, and it'll be big enough to where the press might be interested. And if we can do this, can you clear with this other department for me to have the hall? I got the little pat on the head, and absolutely, of course, I made my team get the absolutely in writing to make sure we were covered. And we ended up, so long story short, I got the hall, obviously, but what we ended up doing was bringing these 800 people to a section of the Great Wall that was in disarray, literally in disarray. It was up, kind of elevated on a hill, and in one day, they restored a 2,500-foot section. So these people, and they're not construction, we're talking, we have moms and wives and, soon to be retired gentlemen, and carrying bricks and cement. And we replanted 800 maple trees along, and they did something that 15 different press outlets came to the site from around China to do a story about it, because they had never had anything, especially a global group of individuals, not Chinese nationalists, but these are people from the US, from France, from London, from Africa, all coming together to leave something behind for the Chinese people. I got to kill two birds with one stone, right? I mean, my audience was on the Great Wall, which, of course, if you're going to China, everybody wants to see. They're fixing something. I mean, so yes, could you go to the Great Wall on vacation? Yes. Could you tell your friends that here's a photo of the area that I actually helped restore? You can't do that. And this XYZ company gave us the opportunity to do it, which then rippled right over to the fact that I got my hall and I got to do my dinner, which was spectacular unto itself. So it really, and like I said, it does feel a little quick, and I'm a little light with it, but the longer story is homework, homework, homework. Learn about the culture, learn about the processes, learn about the people. You know, they're about 27 years ago, I had my first program that was going to Japan. Yes, oh goodness, it was Japan. And I'd flown over and met with the hotel and met with the venues, and I went in there very typical American. And I made my contacts cry. Not by anything I said, but how, right? I'm 6'3". I'm not a petite individual. So physically, my voice, my US demeanor of I want what I want, right? It kind of blew up in my face. And I came home, and of course, everybody in the office heard about what I did. And I actually was sent to a sensitivity training on it because, yeah, I mean, and I fully agree with what happened with that. But what came out of it was I can't leave the US and assume that anybody else in the world is going to bow to me and give me what I want. I need to learn them. I am their guest. They're not serving me. So that's where the homework comes in, is understand your cultures, understand your people, right? Understand the venues and what can you or can't you do. I mean, when we were in the ancestral temple in Beijing, I couldn't touch anything. I couldn't I couldn't have a table even near these columns. I mean, this property, this building was built in what, 1350 something? You're not allowed to do anything in there, and even down to what we cooked and how we cooked it with the smoke and all of that had to be regulated. So how do you then play with it? Well, okay, once again, homework, homework, homework. Figure out kind of what you could do. So then when you get there, you're having a conversation that's respectful and more respectful about the venue. So it's one thing I can't stress enough to my peers is you just don't go in there US mentality of guns ablazing. You can't do that.
Wow, what an impressive story. That story I feel like should be in the, in every textbooks of PR relations. And what was it like working for the world's top 1%? And how do you gain their trust?
Because I keep their trust and I keep their counsel. I don't view anybody as more special than anyone else, right? I mean, there is that saying about I will always treat a CEO the same way that I will treat a janitor, and vice versa. I'll treat a janitor the same way I will treat a CEO. My and not on the Italian side, but on the Dutch side, my grandmother had weathered World War II in Holland. She, the stories are amazing. I actually have my great uncle's pajamas because he was captured. He refused to fight with the Nazis and was sent to a concentration camp and escaped. So I mean, I grew up with these stories, which my grandmother, my Oma, really instilled this: you don't speak ill of anybody. You don't, everybody is equitable. Everybody has a voice. Nobody is more, roles are different, right? I will respect the office. I will respect the role. But if the person doesn't deserve respect, I can respect the role, but I don't have to respect the person. So if I'm treating a CEO the same way I'm treating a janitor and vice versa, if you're not sitting in a restaurant and when that busboy comes and quietly fills your water glass up and you don't acknowledge them by saying thank you, I will smack you in the back of the head. And that's to me how, if that's how I operate. And it's not revolutionary, but it is just everybody, regardless of the role, wants to be seen. And if you treat everybody the same way, people notice. And on the flip side, you're going to get people that are in that threshold that don't believe in that mentality. And then the beauty of it is, I don't have to say yes to their work. That's the other part. I want to also work with like minded individuals. There's a lot of companies and a lot of individuals that after I vet them, I turn them down. And that's, once again, going back to your authenticity as an individual and as a business.
Incredible. I love that lesson. Treating the janitor and the CEO as with the same mentality. And when you design these unforgettable experiences, where do you draw your inspiration from?
Everywhere. Literally everywhere. I am a child of the theater. I love my movies. I love art museums. A sunset, as cliche as it sounds, a sunset on a beach. I I have this visual brain that I'll see something very unique and like it, and I tend to stare at things a lot, and somehow it gets filed away in my brain. Don't know where, don't know how, it just gets filed away. A scene in the movie that just grabs me, it just gets filed away. And as things pop up, and I have people on my team and my friends, they'll make comments that people don't get your references. And I'm like, I know they don't, but they'll get the visual when I show it to them. Is we're talking about a location, or we're talking about an idea from a theme and all that sort of things. And all of a sudden, as I'm hearing words, I start seeing visuals in my head. And something will come out of a file cabinet of something that I saw that just, example, I had a client who wanted a white party. I can't say strong enough, hate the idea of white parties, but really wanted it. And we were in Hawaii, of all places. And I just kept, I'm like, oh God, how much of a cliche can this possibly be? I don't want to do it, but they want to do it. And okay, I'll figure it out. And as I'm thinking through it, I remember walking by in San Francisco, the Neiman Marcus, and one of their back windows was done up with the Neiman Marcus butterflies. Just the entire window was completely filled with strands and strands of strands of the white butterflies and the crystals going in there. And I'm like, what if I recreated that window for the white party? And so what we did is we took one of the ballrooms, and it took 2.5 days just to do this part, but we gridded the entire ballroom with fishing wire. Literally became this massive grid, and strands the entire ballroom was filled with these white butterflies and crystal strands at all different heights and different moments, with the white dance floor and a transparent piece of glass that the DJ had. Everything was virtual that was projected on it. There was no equipment. It was all and it just was, everyone was like, it was such a beautiful experience. And all I kept saying was, look, it's the Neiman Marcus window. And it really, inspiration comes from anywhere. It can come from a sound. It can come from a color. I counsel people all the time who ask me about their personal stuff. And I'm like, if you see a picture, never try and recreate the picture, because it's never going to work. That event or that scene was created by someone of a different mind. It was a different moment in time, a different budget. It's never that moment's gone. But if you look at that picture, what are you connecting with? The flowers, the color, the shading, the location, whatever. There has to be something in there that your brain has connected to make you like it. That's what we riff off of. And that's what we figure out and we go with.
Now, these events are up to like millions of dollars, right? So,
Yes.
whenever you have this really really big event, right? How do you make sure that you are always on schedule?
That's where the other side of my brain comes in. And to be truly transparent, that's also where a really good, solid team comes into play. Because nobody does it alone. And if I'm just gonna look in the mirror and be completely honest with myself, that's the creative part of me that becomes a little flibberty gibbet. Then I'm like, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. And that, the team's like, no, do it now. Get this done now. We need so everybody needs somebody. You need people. Timelines and project management is so important. But when I personally get in that creative mode, I need people next to me to anchor me to make sure that that other half is also supporting this half. So it really is this is doing the events. There is zero. I don't care what anybody tells you. It is not about the individual. It is a collaborative execution experience.
Perfect. And what would you say is the most breathtaking location you have transformed?
It would be China.
China.
It would be the ancestral temple. One, because what we did modernize the dining experience, but the location was so beautiful unto itself, and getting the approval to have the ladies come play these bells that are just massive, right? That have been hanging there for how many hundreds of years. So it wasn't so much a transformation, it was a reimagining of that location for a modern setting. And it also really pushed me culturally to what would it look like now, right? I did the same thing in Versailles with the dinner. Was if Marie Antoinette was having a dinner party here right now, what would it look like? Modernized. Little things like instead of bread plates, we had 95 pink satin tufted bread pillows made. So the bread was placed on a resting pillow and for each guest. There were things that you would think would be very French, very Marie Antoinette, but just in a playful, modern way, right? Do you give them dessert? Do you give them cake? Absolutely not, because she never said let them eat cake. She said let them eat pain perdu, let them eat bread, or she said let them eat brioche, right? Which is bread. So we served everybody pain perdu as a dessert, and so it asking that it is kind of like a Sophie's Choice. I love giving people an interpretation of a location. And there are some that I'm like, okay, that was a little boring. But it is one of those situations that I can truly brag about, that I don't have a file cabinet next to me that I can pull out, let's say file 11, that would be White Party, and just recreate it. Everything I do is tailored around just key pieces, right? The company or the people's culture, the host or hostess's messaging, the company's messaging, the location itself, all of that. And we create something that's a little bit more bespoke than just expected.
Wow. You certainly led us to an adventure, Listening to you is like opening a Dr. Seuss's book, The Cat in the Hat. It takes you everywhere. And
My friends would say there's definitely thing one on this side and thing two on this side.
that's hilarious. And most important question of all, how can the audience reach out to you?
I am not massive on social media. I'm a big believer in just the work. I don't name drop, as you can tell. I don't, if I do post pictures, you'll see it of decor. You will not see people in them. It just, I like to keep their counsel. I like to keep trust. I like to keep those parts of it. But you can find me on Instagram, Perotti EA. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can go to my website, which is edwardaperotti.com. You can reach out to me there. You can DM me, slip into my DMs on Instagram. I surprisingly do answer. It might, depending on schedules, it might take a little time. But once again, I'm a big believer that I don't have anything unless I have the people that support me. So no matter how busy it is, you should always respond. Even if it's with a no. People want to be seen and heard. So I have zero issue with people reaching out.
Oh, wow. This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Edward. You have been an absolutely amazing storyteller. Thank you so much for your stories.
Thank you.
It is an honor to meet you, sir.
Thank you. This is fun. I love letting people know that the event professionals in this world are really, really needed. And the stories that they tell, I don't care where they sit on the food chain in their companies or if they think they're just a wedding planner, they're important because they bring people together. And the more technology separates us, the events are what's going to keep people together.
Sweatpants and Suits interviews the world's most interesting career professionals, uncovering lessons, setbacks, and breakthroughs that shape fulfilling careers. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like, share, or subscribe. Reach out to me on all your favorite social media platforms. Link in the description below.